Good evening, folks. I'm Bruce McDonald, and this is the Talamanca Review. It's my absolute pleasure to spend this time with you folks every evening, and I'm really enjoying it, and I'm really getting tremendous satisfaction from getting to know some of you off air and making friends with many of you, and it's just such a joy to to have meaningful relationships that are founded on something real and rooted in something real and are kind of fertilizer for the positive. Makes me feel very, very good. And it makes me feel very, very good to hear some of the stories that I hear from you folks. Some of the stories about synchronicities and the beginning of your abilities to see how everything is interconnected, not by the will of an individual personality or an individual being, but just as it is and as it reveals itself to us, which is the true path, is just allowing itself to reveal, and then we just have to surrender and give up and trust our lives and live with the kind of faith that the Christ lived with, the kind of wisdom that Lao Tzu lived with, the kind of compassion that Milarepa lived with, and the justice that Muhammad lived with. Okay? Yeah. Peace and blessings be upon him, because he is not an aberration in the spiritual system. A lot of people don't get Muhammad. I didn't till I spent some time with the Sufis and until I read Ibn Arabi, and then I did. And we in the West, especially Christians, we have probably the most sentimental understanding of the divine. And Muhammad doesn't fit that sentimental picture of the divine. But the divine definitely sends messengers like Muhammad. And yeah, there's that stuff you hear about him. The English are having a hard time with them. He married a 9-year-old girl, but, he lived in a time of extreme violence and war. And taking a 9-year-old girl as a bride. You see, I don't know if you folks know this, but Arab harems were not women that the sheikh had sex with. Those harems, those women were celibate. They were taken in by the sheikh because their husbands had been killed and they couldn't be remarried. Okay? The modern sheikhs, the billionaires in Abu Dhabi and Dubai and Saudi Arabia, well, they're not really good versions of Islamic values. So it's a pleasure to spend time with you folks. It's a pleasure to get to know you, and it's my extreme pleasure to be of service, because that's the most fulfilling life, is to have some utility for others. Yeah, the picture I selected tonight was a litter I had about a year and a half. Well, that litter's from about 2.5 or 3 years ago. Thank you, Skydra Deanna. Anyways, the only thing I regret about my podcast is, to be honest, is the darkness of it. Now, those of you who've read The Devil in Us, a memoir of you and me, know I have like a legendary threshold for this kind of negativity because of my upbringing. But I'm always worried about like upsetting people, right? And like, I shouldn't be, because these are things people need to know now. But nonetheless, hey Spencer, nonetheless I am. My God, Costa Rica has good coffee. Okay, now before I go a moment further in what's going on in the world, and I've got some nice clips to show you tonight and some nice things to talk about. And it's not getting any better yet. It's going to get worse before it gets better. I mean, you may say to yourself, well, Bruce, how much worse can it get? The world is being run by a satanic pedophile ring, and how much worse can it get? Well, ask and ye shall receive. But before we get to that, so I put some black 3 mil polypropylene plastic in my sauna. So I had to cover the roof because we just built it out of rough cut bush lumber, right? Everything, by the way, everything up here is from the mountain. I mean, obviously, my computer chair I bought at a store. The computer desk I'm working at now, my brother-in-law made. He cut the wood down, he planed it. The walls are earth bag. The windows, the stained glass windows, were made by a friend of mine, painted. Just bought the glass. Her dad did the frames. The furniture is store-bought, But I do have furniture in the back. The big blue sofa in the back there. The pillows were handmade here in San Jose, and the frames were made by my brother-in-law. So I made my bush sauna. It's so cool, man. It's just like an inverted propane tank, and you cut the top off and you clean it, and then there's a bunch of stuff. You cut a door in it, you put hinges on, and then you cut a square in the back, and we did a square metal chimney to get the smoke out. But the sauna wasn't quite hitting the heat that I wanted because there were too many places for the steam to escape. There was just tiny cracks between the top of the wall and the roof and stuff like that, right? So we sealed everything up, like half the walls, all down half the wall and the ceiling. Sealed it all up with 2 or 3 layers of like 3 millimeter polypropylene plastic. And I had a sauna tonight. And man, this was so hot and so beautiful, right? I mean, I could only go 15, 18 minutes. And I told Santo I'd get a thermostat in there and tell him how hot it's going. And I will do that. But I mean, there's something just absolutely beautiful about a good sweat. I mean, like your whole body is sweating. The bottom of your feet are sweating. Every part of your body is leaking perspiration. Your hair is soaked. Everything, right? It's just beautiful. That's actually will get you cleaner than a shower. And you just wipe off with a wet towel while you're in the sauna. So what I do is I just sweat, and I wipe myself down with a wet cloth. I sweat again, wipe myself down. It cleans out your pores, and it's just beautiful. And I don't know what it is, but I'm just, so proud of the fact that I've, sort of done all this stuff in the middle of nowhere, and everything's improvised, right? Like, how do you build a sauna in the middle of nowhere? Watch some YouTube videos. Get it done, right? So, it's pretty cool. Hi, Dawn. Yeah. Yeah. Hi, Des. Okay, I'm not sure what the other cool show is. I'm not going to go as dark. Well, actually, yeah, it's going to be kind of in a similar vein as dark as last night. Last night wasn't that dark, right? And look, I want to say something, okay? I don't do these shows to make you think that these people are your enemies. Okay? The Kamala Harrises of the world, the Justin Trudeaus, and the Barack Obamas. I have my fun. I have a wicked sense of humor. I think Caramel Catamite is one of the best monikers any politician has ever received, which is my nickname for Barack Obama. The Catamite is the boy property of the pederast, and a pederast is, of course, a man who likes to sodomize boys. And so Barack Obama, his skin is kind of caramel colored, so I call him the caramel catamite, because it has what we call in poetry alliteration, which is the repetition of certain consonants, and alliteration, which is the repetition of consonant and vowel sounds for a musicality to it. Caramel catamite, right? They look for that kind of stuff in advertising and jingles, alliteration and consonants, because rhyming and music is easier for us to remember. But I want you to always remember that these people are raised in non-normal circumstances, okay? And any one of us raised the way Justin Trudeau was raised the way Barack Obama was raised the way George Bush was raised, would become them. And you always have to remember that. You just always have to remember that, okay? And seek the understanding, the love, and forgiveness. And as weird and as corny as this is now going to sound, I do not break the vow of love the vow I made to love to the Creator. When I look at people like Justin Trudeau, Kamala Harris, and Joe Biden, and Barack Obama, yeah, they do horrible things, but horrible things were done to them. Okay? And so I love them. And I know that sounds weird, but I do. So why do I even do a podcast? Why do I even go out of my way to tell you what I think is the truth? I think I'm getting the dart pretty close to the little red dot in the center of the board, though. It may not be a bullseye, but I'm about as close as anybody out there, okay? To inform you, because you have to become aware of these things to grow. They're part of your emotional alchemy, okay? So the bad stuff can be transmuted into a higher understanding. The pain, the emotional pain of learning these things creates a kind of furnace in the heart. And that furnace can forge a new perspective. And it's always this way in the spiritual process. Anybody who tells you it's delicate is lying. It's changing the way we see the world, opening our hearts both to other human beings and to the divine, is always done when we're broken. Because our inclination is pride, self, ego. That's the human inclination. Okay? And those things have to be broken. And in particularly obstinate people, they have to be broken many times in a lifetime before you finally break the person. It's like God's MK Ultra program. You think only the Illuminati and the deep state actors in the world do that stuff? God does the same thing. Except when God breaks you, it's to put more love into you, more compassion and more connectedness with life and other people and animals, everything. When they do it, it's to own you, control you, and get you to do what they want. And it's a high evil. I'm not going to say it isn't. It's a high evil. Okay? Jeffrey Epstein was a high evil. Okay? P. Diddy is a high evil. I'm not going to say it isn't, but I'm not judging them. And I know that they've all been through things that made them the way they are. Now, sure, there are some that just want the money, the power. But I'll bet you even the darkest people in that world wake up some days and go, wow, I wonder what it's like to make love to a woman. I forget, I've just been going to these crazy fuck 'em in the ass orgies for so long with the most beautiful women in the world who do exactly what I want them to do for me. I can't even remember what it's like to make love. I can't even remember what it's like to be vulnerable. So when you're a relatively good person, you have evil temptations, right? Like, wow, I'd like to have a threesome with a couple girls half my age, 28 years old, and I'm 58, right? 29 years old. Yeah, I'm bad at math. You have this little fantasy. I promise you, the people in these systems that Kat told us about, that I told you about in The Light of Darkness and The Devil in Us, their fantasy is making love. So, it's amazing the way this whole thing down here works. It's just kind of amazing and comical if you have the eyes to see the comedy. Wow, good turnout, good crowd. Hi, guys. All right, so let's get into this and let's get it going.
Live breaking news, Nez Nation. This is absolutely insane. Steven Crowder from the Mug Club able to obtain this undercover video footage of Dr. Jay Varma, who was the former senior advisor for public health at the New York City mayor's office during the worst pandemic we've seen since the Spanish flu almost 100 years ago. You're going to hear him confess to unbelievable, absolutely blood-curdling, blood-boiling things that he engaged in while everybody else had to be locked up at home. Your kids couldn't go to school. You couldn't go to church. These were all mandated. Wait till you hear this. This video needs to be shared. You need to like it. You need to absolutely share this with everybody you know. Listen to this, and then I've got a lot more for you. Come on back.
I actually was the one who convinced the mayor to make it a mandate.
Like, New York City found out that you're having sex parties during COVID?
Yeah, it would have been a big deal. Yeah, it would have been real bad. We went to some, underground, dance party, underneath a bank in Wall Street. And we were all rolling, we were all taking Molly, and everybody's high. And I was so happy, because I hadn't done that in, a year and a half, a year or whatever. And but I was looking around being like, I wonder if anybody sees me. Because this was not COVID friendly. The only way I could do this job for the city was if I had some way to blow off steam every now and then. You're kind of sneaky about it because hotels didn't want people gathering there. Because I was running the entire COVID response for the city. My wife and I had one with our friends, in August of that first summer. So we rented a hotel. It was fun. We all took Molly and just it was 8 or 9 of us and 10 or 8 to 10 of us in a room, and everybody had a blast because everybody was so pent up because it had been everybody was just stuck together and stuff like that. Yeah. And sometimes it isn't so much about entering sex, some of it's just something about bodies being close to each other, just being naked with friends.
Was that when everybody was walking out?
It was the summer of 2020. So walk around the streets and eat outdoors.
Did you have any mandates in place?
There wasn't any restrictions on gathering. You could technically gather people. The hotels didn't want us to have parties, but they weren't gonna
Yeah.
It's so funny. It's because I did all this deviant sexual stuff while I was on TV and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And people aren't you afraid? Aren't you embarrassed? And I was no, actually, I'm really I love being my authentic self. So the way we do it in public health is we make it very uncomfortable to be unvaccinated. I don't expect the education to change your behavior. I'm just to make it really hard for you to do your job. You can't get a job. You can't go to a restaurant. You can't go to school. It's I'm just gonna get vaccinated.
So was it technically kind of forcing you?
Yeah, that's what you force people by making it really uncomfortable.
So this guy, Dr. Jay Varma, and I'm going to show you his LinkedIn page too. It's still up. He deleted his X page. By the way, follow me on X. I'm Professor Nez pretty much everywhere, but I post a lot of stuff I can't post anywhere else on X. All my videos are here on this channel, but you got to follow me on X too. Links in the description, show notes, and pinned comment. So this guy was known as the COVID czar during that time period that he worked for the New York City mayor's office. So this guy just admitted through an undercover, secret journalist, full credit to Steven Crowder and Mug Club, that while New Yorkers were locked down in their homes during probably the most oppressive COVID restrictions in the U.S. next to my home state, California, ironically enough, who else was out parading, doing whatever he wants while the rest of us were locked in our homes and our kids couldn't go to school. We couldn't go out. We literally were hostages in our own home. Yeah, you guessed it. Our governor, Gavin Newsom. Remember him? Where he had that little get together at the laundry, whatever it was, restaurant, the French Laundry. All, gathering together in the height of the pandemic, mind you, caught on camera. And nobody was wearing masks. Nobody was social distancing. But yet we all had to be hostages in our own homes. And our kids couldn't go to school, and we couldn't go to church. So again, Jay Varma, the NYC COVID czar, he basically just admitted to holding secret drug-fueled sex parties during the global pandemic. Can you believe this, Nez Nation? It almost makes you think, could this be why they're going after Trump so much, trying to arrest him, assassinate him? All of these people, do they just know? And God knows how high up this goes. Do they all just think, wow, we've definitely got to get rid of Trump, because if Trump becomes president, we're all going to jail. I mean, he even admitted deviant sex drug-filled parties so he could blow off some steam. Hey, I want to blow off some steam. My wife wants to blow off some steam. My family wants to. I couldn't even have my kids see their grandparents. And you want to blow off steam? What about us? What about the American people you're supposed to serve? I mean, these guys are demonic. This is Jay Varma, the guy that you just saw on the undercover camera. This is his LinkedIn page. He went to Harvard College. Isn't that interesting and ironic? Harvard has really been exposed this entire year for being completely pro-Hamas supportive. And you remember Dr. Claudine Gay refusing to call genocide a violent act, refusing to accept the fact that her campus is in turmoil. These are indoctrination camps. I've told you so many times, I am a first-hand witness. I don't just call myself professor for kicks and giggles. I've taught at all these places. I know all these people. I've met all these people. I've worked with all these people. They don't care about anything other than themselves. So his LinkedIn page is still up. This guy is an actual physician. He's a chief medical officer for a pharmaceutical company. You can see his about page. He's a physician executive and an epidemiologist. This is something that I found so alarming and just really should ring a ton of alarm bells, red flags across the board. Look at his post 6 days ago. He posted an article that he wrote, or was he commissioned? The challenge of controlling Mpox in Africa. Remember, monkeypox is like their latest election interference hoax that they want to basically thrust upon the American people. But look at the subtext, the subtitle, Why Vaccines Alone Will Not Be Enough. You can't make this stuff up, folks. These people need to go. They need to be tried. They need to be imprisoned. They need to have their license taken away, their ability to affect millions of American lives. That needs to stop today. I need you to share this like wildfire. Tap the thumbs up. It's free. It takes you only a nanosecond. Here you can see in his experience section, Siga Technologies. He is the chief. So this guy makes a ton of money. Executive vice president. I've worked with chief medical officers in my consulting business. These guys are very, very well off. They make a ton of money. The parallel to being an administrator at a university, the administrators make 10 times more than the actual professors who actually do the work. Just like the chief medical officers, these guys are the admin for the hospitals and these companies where the doctors do all the work, get paid nothing. These guys get paid exorbitant salaries to basically spread God knows what kind of misinformation, God knows what kind of propaganda. And then on top of that, they're having drug-fueled sex parties underground while the rest of us have to be holed up in our homes. I said this before, that 2024 has been this beautiful year of exposure, exposing higher education, exposing the administration, exposing Joe Biden, exposing all of the government secrets, exposing Hunter Biden, exposing the laptop story, exposing the media, and so on and so forth. I remember very clearly during the pandemic, the height of the pandemic, when our kids, who were a lot younger in elementary school at that time, were being homeschooled. And by the way, I live in a district where we pay exorbitant taxes. And one of the draws of buying a home in our area is the school district. The school district is touted as being one of the best in the state, if not, in the top 10 in the country.
Anyways, I don't want to belabor the point. There was another 3 or 4 minutes in that 11-minute clip, but I mean, you get the point, right? So this is the COVID czar for New York City, and this is how he's behaving during the pandemic while everybody else is locked down. Now, so coincidentally, this is what the rabbis call the Messianic Age. And the Messianic Age is one in which all the truth will come out, and all the good will come out, and all the bad will be revealed. Okay? Now, I of course don't believe that this is anything astrological or anything like that. I believe that this is the machinations of human beings. And I believe that this is all a multidimensional Hegelian dialectic. Now, I could be proven wrong, but I could be proven wrong, but I'd be very surprised. Okay? Yeah, I've spent so much time studying this, and a lot of the study has been what I would call divinely directed, or let's call it a certain kind of intuitive grace. This is how information you're supposed to know comes into your life. It saves you literally thousands of hours of research, but it takes a lot of time to build up the discernment to know what intuitive grace is, or divine intuition. And it's my belief that reason that a lot of this stuff is coming out now is the same reason that Jeffrey Epstein got arrested. Okay? And it has nothing to do with his time being up or anything like that. It's just they threw him out into the public square because they want us to start seeing these things. Because you can't capture the hearts and minds of people unless they believe you're the hero. So to create the Batman, you first have to create the Joker. You see where I'm going with this? And this is what's going on now. And this is why I think that leadership from Brussels, or some kind of United Nations globally led world, is complete nonsense. I think the real globalization we're going to is Jerusalem-led Noahide law. I don't think it'll last more than 7 or 12 years. I think it'll blow up in their hands like a faulty hand grenade, and I think they're in a lot of trouble. But it all has to play out. There's no way around this. And again, don't hate them either. Okay? There's a reason everything happens. In a sense, you could even say that we're all really actors down here. Okay? My role is disclosure. Okay? And my role is storytelling as a form of disclosure, and communication as a form of disclosure. For those who are ready to receive the disclosure, because not everybody is. I'd say, oh, man. I mean, based on the numbers I get on YouTube compared to some of the podcasts out there, I'd say about 0.0001% of the population is ready for a true spiritual disclosure of what's going on this planet. It's the same thing with the extraterrestrials. You know, we're not now engaging extraterrestrials. In fact, extraterrestrials is the perfect way to make my point. So we're being led to believe now by disclosure experts, and they're always set up to look heroic, right? Like Stephen Greer, you know, going on the Patrick Bet-David podcast and the Joe Rogan podcast, and saying stuff like there have been numerous attempts on his life and people who work for him have been killed. Look, I'm just going to say it. If people who work for him have been killed, he probably had them killed. Okay? Because there is no UFO disclosure the human race needs except the truth, which is that we've always been under UFO control, extraterrestrial control, non-human control. Okay? Now there's this big group making it all biblical. Okay, these are really fallen angels disguising themselves as extraterrestrials. They can do that, and in some instances they would do that, but that's not the totality of it. There really are extraterrestrials. You really can meet extraterrestrials in your consciousness if you develop the ability to project out there, okay, or to realize that you're already out there and connect with that part of you that's already out there. Okay? Now, even 5 years ago, I wouldn't have said this out loud. And I don't say anything out loud that I haven't directly experienced. Or most things I say, I've directly experienced, which allows me to speak with confidence because experience is knowledge. Okay? So my first, other than the 2 UFOs I saw, one when I was about 9 years old, and that's documented in The Devil and Us, and another one when I was about 37 years old, and that was the one I've told you folks about on my podcast before. You know, where I came back from you remember when the Blood of the Lamb podcast I did just like 3-4 podcasts ago? And I told you the story about renting the cabin and working on the book. And in one of the few breaks I took coming toward the end when I was almost done the rewrite, I went to a movie and I bumped into Jim Caviezel, Jesus from The Passion of the Christ, at a donut shop at the side of the highway in cottage country at like 11:30 at night. Okay? It was on that same trip that I did all the fasting and the meditation and the prayer and the writing. 2 days after I got back to my house in the West End of Toronto, there was a UFO right above my house. Okay? So all of this stuff is connected to our consciousness, okay? It's all connected to our consciousness. So there's no UFO disclosure required except that we're under very dark extraterrestrial control right now. It's still this sort of Anunnaki reptilian thing. And this is what's falling apart now. And they're even fighting with themselves now. They're so close to their end. So there is a golden age coming, but we're going to have to jump through a few hurdles first to get there. And there's still a lot more lies. And the big lie they're working on now are the Jews are the chosen people. And we all have to be led by them from Jerusalem, by the Sanhedrin and their high rabbinical councils. And we all have to observe their animal sacrifices for the one God that created everything. Because that God apparently wants animal blood. Yeah. And, it's an indictment of our time that a significant portion of the population is this stupid and this gullible. Okay? And there's nothing we can do about that. Okay? I'm doing as much as I can just with the podcast, but don't get too upset with people, okay? It's very, very difficult to break people's perception and their state of mind. Remember what I said at the beginning of the podcast, that God breaks us to open up our hearts. Well, what was the 20th century from World War II onwards for North Americans and Western Europeans? And Scandinavians, Norway, Finland, places like that. Well, it was the most comfortable and leisurely period in known human history for hundreds of millions of people, close to 1 billion people, if you add up all the countries and the populations. We had no starvation. We had excesses of food. We didn't die of diseases that were cured, or remediated. The life expectancy went way up, and what happened? Did we become more divine? No. The opposite. We became more self-involved, more involved in our egos, and because this is the way the world works. So that's all ending now. Okay? And that's okay. All right? The system that's going to come after this, well, who knows what it's going to be? I don't know. I mean the real system, not the phony one that we're going to have to cycle through for a short period of time. But inevitably, it's going to be better than this one, okay? Now, let's take a listen to this, because this is actually pretty big.
Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, and I want to do a quick update about a document that got passed by the United Nations this weekend called the Pact of the Future document. It's 2 parts, one on science and technology and one about the youth and future generations. It is quite egregious, and it was done by a procedure called the silence procedure, which makes it a pact. And if no one objected, it is automatically adopted and put into the record as being completely adopted. This is the World Health Organization's runaround, or end around. Since they were not able to get the World Health Organization treaty passed, they decided to take it to the General Assembly. And it is even more egregious than what the World Health Organization was wanting to get passed. Let me just read you something really quickly about what is inside of this pact that is now being accepted by 193 nations around the world and equally open-armed accepted by our current administration. Everyone, it says that this is the power structure, fully digital and maximized for the control of the masses. Everyone will be expected to have a biometric digital ID that marks them not just as citizens of an individual country, but as a global citizen. So anytime you hear global citizen or anytime you hear sustainability, think that this is an egregious thing that's happening at the level of the World Health Organization and the United Nations. Anyone that has a dissonant opinion will be labeled as misinformation, disinformation, or malinformation and memory hold. Perpetrators for unapproved information will be fact-checked and punished by the system, which will be operated and enforced by artificial intelligence. Punishments will include being locked out of one's bank account, being unable to make certain purchases, unable to get on an airplane, on a subway, drive on public roads. This is the future, according to the world's self-appointed overlords at the United Nations. These are unelected bureaucrats that are making decisions about our country, our sovereignty around the world. Nothing could be more important at this point in time than to get prepared. Have water, food, digital access, flashlights, a way to communicate with family and friends. Now is really the time to get involved and get prepared, because this is what's coming. Our Congress is sitting on its hands. There was a press conference on the 17th about this, and no further action has been taken. So it's up to us to mobilize and to go forward, particularly with your local sheriffs, to get your constitutional sheriffs to say, this isn't going to be allowed in my county. Thank you very much. Take action. We've been talking about the onset of one world order, one world government, one world religion, one world money for a long time. Well, it's no longer coming. It's here.
It's no longer coming, it's here. Okay? Now that's the Joker. So what's Batman? Batman will be the rabbis. Okay? They're going to save us from this. Their temple, their animal sacrifices, their black magic. So we're being herded, really, like cattle. Okay? And I mean, the only thing you can really do is separate yourself, but it's hard to do. And I keep saying that, and I don't want to keep rubbing people's faces in it because I sound like an asshole, and I don't want to be an asshole, okay? And I full well understand that a lot of people just can't do it. They have elderly parents to take care of, children in the North American school system, and why would you, take them somewhere else, make them learn a new language, go a place where you don't know anything, you don't know how things are done in that place. So I totally get it, man. I mean, I don't have any problem understanding why you might not want to do that. It would be ideal if you could. Not everybody can. I show my gratitude for being led out of the system that is being brought into great control now. By doing this podcast, by writing the books, which sets aside my time. And believe it or not, my time's worth money. My time's worth like at least $100 an hour, probably more, if I were to sit down and do the math. Okay? So when I do this stuff, I'm doing it because I want to do it, and I do it because it needs to be done. Now, for those of you who are wondering about the title of today's podcast, Emotional Alchemy, here's what it's about. You need to engage and embrace all of these ideas and all of these truths that I'm bringing to you. You need to feel them. You need to let your heart feel them. You need to let whatever emotion comes come, whether it's sadness, whether it's depression, whether it's anger, whatever it is, let those emotions come. Don't get drunk. Don't get high. Okay? I mean, once in a while, if you want to have a few glasses of wine on a Friday night, go ahead. You want to smoke a marijuana cigarette? I think the kids call them a joint or a blunt. Go ahead, once in a while. What I'm saying is don't use it as a coping mechanism. Face what is happening. Because remember what I said at the beginning of the podcast. To get more of God into us, you have to be broken. And if you haven't already been broken, and I was broken very young, multiple times, then this is an excellent opportunity to break your mindset with the pain of our time. So the emotional alchemy I'm talking about is pain to perception, pain to passion, pain to comprehension, pain to transcendence. And these things I talk about and these truths I bring you are painful. I'm not going to say they're not painful. I mean, if you got a nice life going, like the doctor there and the chief COVID czar in New York, pretty good life going, right? He's pretty far from God, whatever God he worships. He's pretty far from any concept of the divine. He's completely trapped in that Western upper middle class decadent lifestyle that most of us or our parents went through in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And I don't blame them for wanting to experience that. I'm so far beyond being angry at anybody. Okay? I made my peace with the devil himself, writing The Devil in Us. Okay? I now, like Bob, call him a friend. I know that sounds weird, but it's true. And so I just don't get angry at people anymore, and I don't judge them, okay? My only utility, my only service, if I have one, and I might just be a vainglorious lout thinking I even have a purpose, but if I have a purpose, my only purpose is to give clarity and direction to those of you on path. And tonight, the clarity and direction I have to offer you is the management of your pain for higher consciousness and closer relationship with the divine. Let it break you. Don't be afraid of being broken. They don't want us to be broken anymore. That's why they got all the pharma out there. Hey, you're depressed, take this pill. No, I actually think my depression is a transformative experience. Even some of the popular spiritual teachers, like Eckhart Tolle, if you've ever heard his personal story. I mean, the dude was near suicide. He was so depressed. He literally could not cope with life. And when he was almost at the very end of his rope, he popped out of his body one day and it wasn't medical. It wasn't what we would call a near-death experience. But all the pain he brought into himself squeezed him and internally squeezed him like a grape, and the grape seed popped out, which is him. Okay? Transformed his life. There's a classic example of transformation by pain. And believe me when I tell you, it's always by pain, okay? And if you don't have any external pain come into your life, it's because you accepted the disciplines and did not deviate from a very young age. And there's people like that too. They have a great yearning for the divine, and they go out, they learn some stuff, they maybe take initiation in a path, they practice, and they connect with the divine. And the self-sacrifice of their incessant spiritual practice is the substitution for the pain. But for most of us, it's pain, okay? My start as a meditator and a deep contemplative and a person curious about the divine began with an extremely, oh my God, pit bulls have bad gas. Dude! Oh, holy cow. It's like I'm living with a 400-pound roommate who lives on a diet of beans and cabbage. Huh. And so don't be afraid of your pain and try to deal with it, okay? Now, let's take a look at this guy, because I want to finish up with this guy today.
¿Cómo es que el mundo está cayendo tan rápido? Dicen que El Salvador nada contra la corriente, porque mientras El Salvador se volvió más seguro, el mundo se volvió más inseguro. Mientras el pueblo salvadoreño se volvió más optimista, la mayoría de la gente en el mundo moderno se vuelve cada vez más pesimista. Y sí, tienen razón. El mundo se ha vuelto dividido, deprimido, preocupado, hostil y sin esperanza. Y lo ha hecho a una velocidad sin precedentes. Hoy el mundo libre ya no es libre. Esto no es una exageración. Trágicamente vemos pruebas innegables de esta decadencia todos los días. Las nuevas amenazas de guerras continúan. Cuando el mundo libre se volvió libre, fue gracias a sus principios de libertad de expresión, igualdad ante la ley, unidad y respeto por la propiedad privada. Pero una vez una nación abandona sus principios que la hacen libre, es solo cuestión de tiempo para que pierda su libertad por completo. Las consecuencias se están desarrollando ante nuestros propios ojos. Las podemos ver. En algunas ciudades del llamado primer mundo, las tiendas necesitan asegurar sus productos detrás de puertas de vidrio con llave para evitar robos. Y no hablo ni siquiera de productos caros, sino de cosas sencillas como una barra de chocolate o una rasuradora. En otras ciudades, las calles ya no pertenecen a la gente, sino que han caído en manos de la indigencia, de las pandillas, del crimen organizado y de las drogas. No puedes reclamar el título de mundo libre si ni siquiera tu gente es libre para caminar por las calles sin temor a ser acosada, robada o asesinada. También estamos siendo testigos en tiempo real de la erosión de la libertad de expresión. Hace apenas una década, Occidente era el bastión de la libertad de expresión y ahora es sermoneado por quienes solían denunciar. Las plataformas más grandes de redes sociales en el mundo fueron obligadas a censurar a sus usuarios a petición de sus gobiernos. Ciudadanos de países occidentales han sido arrestados por compartir publicaciones en redes sociales. Los partidos gobernantes han intentado prohibir a su oposición política. Estas no son acusaciones ni teorías de conspiración, son hechos comprobables y ampliamente documentados. No se puede ganar el respeto del pueblo sin respetar al pueblo. Esto ni siquiera comenzó hace poco, pero lo notamos más porque en los últimos años se ha acelerado. Y esta aceleración significa que estamos acercándonos a un tenebroso punto de inflexión. Estamos ante una nueva era oscura de la humanidad. Como salvadoreños reconocemos estos síntomas de la decadencia cuando los vemos, porque hemos pasado por todos ellos. Vivimos las etapas de la caída de nuestra nación una por una. Y estamos viendo esas mismas etapas una vez más, pero esta vez a escala global. No podemos ni deseamos decirles a otros países lo que tienen que hacer. Cada país debe tomar sus propias decisiones y hacer lo que sea mejor para su gente. Solo podemos ofrecer una palabra de advertencia de un amigo que ha pasado por una época oscura y ha librado la batalla de su vida para salir de ella. No podemos cambiar el curso del mundo. El Salvador es un país demasiado pequeño. Somos de hecho el país más pequeño de todo el continente americano. Esto es mucho más grande que nosotros y de hecho es más grande que cualquier nación. No podemos prevenir los tiempos oscuros que se avecinan. Pero lo que sí podemos hacer es convertirnos en un pequeño refugio ante la tormenta que se aproxima y mantener la esperanza. En El Salvador no encarcelamos a nuestra oposición, no censuramos opiniones, no confiscamos bienes de quienes piensan diferente. No arrestamos a las personas por expresar sus ideas. En El Salvador tu libertad de expresión, así como tu propiedad privada, siempre estarán protegidas. En El Salvador priorizamos la seguridad de nuestros ciudadanos honestos sobre la comodidad de los criminales. Algunos dicen de que hemos encarcelado miles, pero la realidad es que hemos liberado a millones. Ahora son los buenos los que viven libres, sin miedo, con sus libertades y derechos humanos totalmente respetados.
Por mí es increíble, yo vives por ver un día cuando el presidente de un país con El Salvador dame una lectura a todo el mundo libre o la asunción de libertad, de la principal de libertad y la propiedad privada. Es increíble. It's unbelievable that I would live to see a day like this when the president of El Salvador is lecturing the free world, or the so-called free world, on the principles of freedom. Do you see how much things have flipped? Okay? Now, what we still have in the West is the ability to speak, but that's going to go away soon. Because if the course of dictatorial tyranny that we're on now, and I believe it's all being set by Barack Hussein Obama, okay? I believe he's the principal architect. I think he may be the main guy now in the American system since George Bush Sr. died, okay? It was definitely George Bush Sr. when he was alive, but the torch has been passed to Obama. And his goal is to collapse, destroy, humiliate, and torture, and ultimately decimate the population of America. And if you think he's your homie because his skin is sort of the same color as yours, don't fool yourself. He hates you too, my black brothers and sisters. He hates you, okay? That man was raised to be full of hate. It's not his fault. He was put into a cauldron of deception and manipulation from birth, just like Justin Trudeau, birthed and raised by whores, and I don't mean to be derogatory, but the mothers were whores, okay? Now, it's interesting that they're the exact opposite of when you go back to the Bible. You know, Christ was born of the purest woman who ever lived. Do you know that the Quran and the Muslims regard Mary, the mother of God, Jesus, as the purest and best woman who ever walked the face of the earth? They hold her in higher regard than Christians. Okay? And so Christ was born of a pure woman, and the Antichrist personalities, I'm not saying the Antichrist in the biblical prophetic sense, but the Antichrist personalities are there by consequence born of horrible women. Women who prostitute themselves for advantage, women who allow themselves to be shown in pornography, like Justin Trudeau's mother and like Barack Hussein Obama's mother, raised by angry, demonically possessed communists like Pierre Elliott Trudeau and whomever was the father of Barry Soretto, a.k.a. Barack Hussein Obama, okay? And they have many demonic legions in flesh. Okay, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer is so far gone, it's unbelievable. I think I showed you guys on my podcast. There was a video of him talking to an empty chair on Capitol Hill in one of the meeting rooms of the, I think it was one of the subcommittees, you know, like House Finance Subcommittee and stuff like that. He's literally talking to an empty chair. He's not crazy, folks. Okay? Chuck Schumer's not crazy. He's not bipolar and he's not schizophrenic. There was something in the chair. Okay? So, amazing to me that we would be lectured by a man whose country was decimated by the United States through various coups. And a lot of that was done by the United States, of course, you know. And now it's one of the best countries in the world. And again, I touch upon this because this became a hot point with one of my listeners who is, I assume is no longer a listener because I no longer see comments on the videos and I think he got his feelings hurt. But hey, what's the title of today's podcast? Emotional Alchemy. You know, I'm sorry I hurt you, but not really. Wasn't intentional. If my telling my truth hurt your feelings, then so be it, okay? But this is the world we live in now, folks. Everything is upside down, man. Anybody wants to call in, I'll take a call tonight. I'll wait another 3, 4, 5 minutes to see if anyone calls in. I see all of you here. Sue Haynes, Punjabi Prepa, Des, Bibi Ladesh, Kitty. Why don't you call in, Kitty? Anybody can call in. Have a chat with me. Chris, I don't think he's on tonight. I don't see him there in the comments. He's usually in the comments. I bought this shirt in El Salvador. Nice little Fila sports shirt. Everything was about half price there, so best thing that happened to me today was my first sauna with the 3 mil polypropylene in there, and what it does is it traps the steam. So when you put the water on the rocks, it used to be the steam would escape through these little cracks where the ceiling was joining the walls, and that's all sealed up now. So I get a perfect sauna, and a real bush sauna. I think a fire sauna, like an old-fashioned fire sauna, it's much more spiritual and much more gratifying than these new electric or infrared saunas or anything like that. So, I'm just loving life. Got the back patio around my pool finished. More of a Roman bath than a pool. But got that finished. And I find myself, like El Salvador, a little pocket of optimism and a little pocket of growth in a world that appears to be going in the exact opposite direction. And I don't think it's going to bounce back. I think it's going to, again, the principle of breaking to find your heart and find your connection with life and the cosmos and the divine again. If it's true for an individual, it's true for a nation, or it's true for nations. The West needs to be broken, okay? We need to get, it needs to be broken. That's all there is to it at this point. Okay. In the absence of any calls, I'm going to hit my 55 to 58 minute mark, which is typical for the Telemaker Review. And I'm going to bid you folks adieu. It's been great spending time with you. I love you all in the spiritual sense. And I really like this community we're building. Peace out. I'm Bruce McDonald, and this has been